It's true that both men made fundamental contributions to the formation of the United States. The Virginia Declaration of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights are foundational to the United States and our republic. It's true that both men owned enslaved people, as many as 900 individuals over their lifetimes. It's true that was common among the founding fathers. That doesn't make it any less reprehensible. It's not revisionist history to say that both men achieved great things and both men committed reprehensible acts. That's true history. Nothing we do tonight will change that. It doesn't change history, though, to ask a question. Are these two men appropriate namesakes today for schools in a division committed to anti-racism? After careful consideration of everything I've heard, I come to the conclusion that they are not. We should rename both schools. Doing so is in the best interest of our students and consistent with our commitment to foster equity and equality for our staff, our students, our families, and our community. Others have said this next part too. This is a necessary step, but it's not enough, and we know that. We must continue to revise our curriculum and instruction to teach a more complete and more accurate history. We need to continue to revise our hiring, promotion, and retention practices. We need to continue to develop a broader diversity, equity, and inclusion policy and ensure incidents of racism, inequity, and injustice are called out and corrected. We need to do all of that, and I'm confident we will. We heard several comments over time that suggested that we should adopt the approach from George Mason University, and although I am not advocating that we adopt their approach in total, I do advocate that we consider adopting part of their approach, and that we should create some form of public space within the city to educate about the full history of both men. Perhaps this could be even coupled with a larger effort to re-examine the true history of Falls Church City as well. We could take cues from George Mason University, from the educational display in the lobby of Mary Ellen Henderson Middle School, the Tinner Hill Monument, the new sidewalk monument along Maple Avenue, and other similar efforts. Honestly, I'm not sure I know what this all looks like, but I think it's an idea worth considering. I also think there's another important step we as a community need to take together. There was a strong reaction to the survey results with sharp words from many people. And as painful and as upsetting as that was, I actually want to say, oddly, it makes me hopeful. The fact that we as a community can have hard conversations about racism is a good thing. We shouldn't shy away from it because it's hard. Indeed, we all need to get comfortable being uncomfortable if we're going to continue those conversations and end up in a better state. I know we can if we choose to. So after deep and careful consideration of everything I've heard and read, I conclude that renaming both schools is in the best interests of our students and a necessary part of our equity work. And therefore, I will vote tonight to rename both schools. I don't know if there is anything remaining that anyone would like to say, or any questions that anybody would like to raise. And I'm not seeing any. So at this point, we have two separate actions tonight. And we do need to ultimately take two separate votes. So item 7.03 on the agenda is renaming of George Mason High School. And I would seek a motion related to this item. Dr. Dimick.
Mr. Chair, I move that the school board approves the renaming of George Mason High School.
Thank you, Dr. Dimick. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Ms. Goodell.
Yes. Dr. Anderson,
Yes.
Dr. Dimick,
Yes.
Ms. Downs,
Yes.
Ms. Litton,
Yes.
Mr. Reitinger,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
and Mr. Webb.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is 7.04, school renaming of Thomas Jefferson Elementary, and I would seek a motion relating to this.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Webb,
I move that the Falls Church City School Board change the name of Thomas Jefferson Elementary School.
thank you, Mr. Webb. Is there a second?
Second.
I think Dr. Dimick got about a half-second head start on you, Mr. Reitinger. Ms. Goodell,
Yes. Dr. Anderson,
yes.
Dr. Dimick,
Yes.
Ms. Downs,
Yes.
Ms. Litton,
Yes.
Mr. Reitinger,
Yes.
Ms. Russell, and Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Thank you. And the motion passes.
Thank you. I would suggest that a 10-minute recess is in order at this point, after I say a couple of things about next steps, just so folks are aware. Given that decision, we have already told the community when we began this process that if we made the decision that we have just made, that the second stage of the process to choose a new name for both schools would follow what was at the time policy FFA and regulation 4.26, now FFA and regulation FFAR, which is a staff-based process where we will discuss this in more detail at our meeting on the 15th. But in essence, we will be looking to Dr. Noonan and staff to gather a set of nominations from around the city for anyone who wishes to be part of a committee. And then we will select, there will be a staff selection process to get the committee put together to gather public input, to discuss and deliberate potential names. There will be at least one point in time when there will be discussion back to us partway through the process. And then ultimately the committee has the task of recommending to us a set of 5 names each for the schools. And we will ultimately have to make the final choice. And again, the choice of the name is ultimately up to us. So we'll talk in more detail about that process, about a timeline for that process and all of that at our meeting on the 15th. But I want to make sure that folks are aware that generally that is the process. And so that'll be basically the next step at this point will be to gather on the 15th, hear in further detail and make sure that we have talked about a timeline and a plan and we'll go forward at that point. So. With that, I will suggest that we take a 10-minute recess and gather back here at 9:32. And I would remind everybody that as you are going on recess, to mute your mics, please.